just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So this has been going on for a very long time, but every time it happens, the scientists come up with a new far-fetched explanation for it. We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. And that's what the witnesses are always describing, incredible as it is.
Welcome to the first episode of Don't Turn Around. This is a podcast about the extraordinary, the unexplained, and the impact these profound experiences have on our lives. Thank you for being here, listener. This podcast, probably without me knowing it, has been 15 years in the making. And I've put off recording this intro for weeks because I wanted to get it right, and I've scrapped my notes probably 10 or more times over at this point. So now I'm more or less winging it, which somehow does seem appropriate. But I do want to cover what's important in as few words as possible so we can get right into the podcast. I'm feeling grateful for having taken the chance and humbled by the stories I've heard over the last several weeks I've spent collecting interviews. The conversations have been amazing, without exception. And I'm grateful because through the course of these conversations, I've gotten excited about the unexplained in a way that I haven't really felt since I was that fifth grader walking out of the public library with a stack of ghost, Bigfoot, and UFO books in my arms. So maybe, who knows, maybe this podcast has been even longer than 15 years in the making. Either way, it's felt really right, and that's the best way that I can describe it, and has felt right to pursue this podcast. And I'm so happy to be delivering this first episode and knowing that there are many more episodes to come. In this week's episode, my guests and I get into the subject of haunted objects. This is a concept I find fascinating. On one end, just the notion that an energy, a force, a spirit, however you want to describe it, can attach itself to a physical object is intriguing in and of itself. Something I've wanted to know more about, look more into. And then on the other side of it is the human part of the experience in terms of the people that are collecting these objects. This episode's guest, aside from being an investigator, is a collector of haunted objects. And her experience as a collector is absolutely fascinating. So, let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome everybody. Tonight I'm here virtually with Kris from Paranormal Descendants. Kris is a collector of all things haunted, and her collection is incredible. I haven't seen so many creepy objects in one place, and we're definitely going to be getting into that tonight, as well as a paranormal investigator. Kris, I came across on Instagram and have been following her since. It's probably been about a year now, and she also is a YouTuber as well and has some awesome content out there on YouTube. Obviously, I will be dropping all of this into the show notes so you can find Kris on your own. So, Kris, welcome to the show. I'm very glad to finally have you on here. I know we've been trying to get this going for a little while, so I'm glad this finally worked out. So, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited and honored to be your first guest.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, hopefully you'll be saying that when we get to the end, but we'll see. We'll see. So, the obvious question, I want to start talking about some of your haunted collection here, and then we'll see where the conversation takes us. So,
Sure.
Obviously you haven't had this collection your whole life. I'm sure when you were 6 years old, you didn't ask Santa for a Dybbuk box, and probably, you had some other stuff on your Christmas list back then. So when did this start? When did you decide to start collecting? Was it a conscious decision, or did it just evolve?
Yeah, actually, I started my collection, I think it was almost 2.5 years ago, I think, about maybe a
Okay.
little bit longer. Actually, it was because I, I watch a lot of like the paranormal YouTubers and stuff,
Right.
and I remember watching an Oh My Gosh video,
Mhm.
and he had it was one of his videos like way back then when he was there was these haunted dolls that were in his new house, and I was really intrigued. They were like falling over in the video and like all kinds of crazy stuff was happening. And I was really intrigued by it. And that's kind of what set it off. I bought my first one and then it just honestly became like, I just got kind of obsessed with it, I guess, in a way. And, I started off buying like one, two, and then now I have probably like 50 at
Wow.
least, probably.
That's
So
remarkable. Yeah.
I mean, I've never counted them
Right.
like an actual number, but there's a lot of them.
So
So,
so
yeah,
going back to the first the first haunted doll that you picked up, did you find this over on eBay or did you go through
the
another route?
the first one, yes, I bought on eBay. And the funny thing is about like eBay, which I find is that like, s- you know, when I first got into this, I really had no idea what I was doing. I just like looked through the listings and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this one looks kind of cool. So I bought it. And I don't actually know if that one is truly haunted. But then like think it not even like a week later, I bought another one and then another one.
Mhm.
And it just kind of progressed. As time went on and I started really getting into this, like I do have intuitive abilities.
Mhm.
So like at first when I did this, I wasn't really laying into my intuition about it. I just kind of, picked them willy-nilly, but now
Right.
I lean more towards my intuition and what I feel about these objects, either when I see them online or, you know, even some have gotten in antique stores or
Mhm.
like all different places. So, I lean into my intuition on them, and then, and that's also part of the fun too, is getting to find out whether they are really haunted or not.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah, absolutely. So here's a question. In terms of going on intuition as you kinda got more into this, were you always aware that you had an intuition to get a sense of something like this from an object? Or is this something that came from the process of collecting these things that you realized that you had sort of an ability to be kinda sensitive to that?
I've always known that I have had, like psychic intuition, but I had never really put it towards like objects before.
Mhm.
Normally it was just about spirits like around me or like
Right.
wherever I've gone, things like that. But I never really had thought about, I didn't even really know that there were haunted objects for a long time.
Yeah.
And then once I found that out, it really intrigued me. And that's when I got into this whole thing.
That's so cool. I mean, it's probably almost, I don't know, serendipitous that you happen to see the, oh my gosh, YouTube video and said, "Oh, this might be something that I'm interested in." And then here you are 2 years later with this phenomenal collection. Do you ever wonder if there is sort of this, force that is almost kinda guiding you in this direction, or do you feel like this is, less, serendipity and less this sort of cosmic power that's taking along this road and more just this is what your gut has led you to?
I think that something has been driving me towards it because I think a lot of these spirits that I've dealt with and continue to deal with have really, they've really like almost basically kind of come to me for help in,
Mhm.
in some instances. And I feel like that's part of it too, is that, you know, um, I don't know. I just feel like something is when I first started doing this, I felt like something was drawing me to do it,
Mhm.
and I've just kept at it ever since.
And see, one thing, one of my goals, with this show is in part to learn the stories of the folks that I have on, and just in terms of the facts of what they're experiencing, of what what they're all about. But I'm
Mhm.
also just intrigued as far as, the personal impact this has on people, and in terms of you feeling like you were kind of pulled into this by maybe some guiding force, and even there maybe to be a helpful agent, in this energy that you're bringing into your home. Um, at the end of the day, when you're laying in bed at night, and what kind of thoughts cross your mind as you're contemplating the next item that you're going to bring into your house, or just even just kind of in general, how this has maybe steered your life in a different direction that maybe would have gone in had you not been drawn to this.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't really think about, when I'm gonna buy something, or like it just kind of happens. Like I'll go for a while without purchasing any, and then all of a sudden, like I'll get some kind of almost like a notification, like a download to,
Right.
go in and find these other ones, and then, for a while I won't get them again for a little bit, and it's really weird because that's a good question. I've never really thought about that before, but sometimes, I feel like, I'll take not like necessarily a break, but I don't know, sometimes it just I get like this almost like this little ding in my head, like,
Mhm.
maybe I'll go check out what's on there now, and then, other times I won't for a while. It's just really. And I feel like since I've been doing this, the more and more I've been doing this, like the more in tune to that little voice, if you want to call
Yeah.
it, that I get in tune with.
Oh, that yeah,
Um,
that makes complete sense to me. It's
yeah,
almost
like
like when you're like, let's say, for example, I don't know if this is going to be a good example, and so you can say that's a that's a terrible example. But for example, you have a song that you love to listen to, and the first time you hear the song, you're hearing the song as it is as a whole. But then suddenly there's these nuances and these other parts in the song that are suddenly you hear them, and then you have this thought where I've been listening to this song for so long. How did I never hear these things? Is it that kind of
yeah,
vibe
yeah, just
almost?
like that. Pretty much. Yeah, that's a really good analogy for it. And I don't know. It's just really interesting now to think about because I never really put much like thought in this way to it
Hmm.
before. So thank you for asking these questions. I actually am
Of
interested in my answers to them because I've never really thought about it that way before. But for example, like the last haunted objects that I purchased was one of my like prized possessions, I'll call it. It's the haunted portrait. It's an antique portrait of, and it's basically like an artifact too. It's a antique portrait of the first superintendent of Alabama Insane Hospital, of him and his wife. Um,
I watched your unboxing of that, and also your disappointment when the frame was busted. I really I felt for you there, but yeah,
yeah,
I know exactly the object that you're talking about, and I was going to ask you more about that object.
I'm
So
actually
have
staring
at it.
at it right now as I
Yeah,
speak about it
yeah.
because it's just really. And ever since I've gotten it, like activity has really increased in the house. Because a lot of times it's very dormant here.
Hmm.
But then like, I'll bring something new in and then things really pick up. For the first few weeks that I had it, it was flying off the wall every few
Wow.
days. And now, so far it hasn't fallen down in a while, so that's good. Because I don't want it to break. I was so afraid it
No.
was going to break every time it fell. But it's really interesting, that one, because a lot of these items, they're really cool, but like they're not, like special artifact kind of items. And when I saw, it's interesting to me that I decided to go on there that day, and then that's when that was
Yeah.
listed, and I was like, oh my god, that's such a cool thing. Like I have to get that. you know.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I mean, it's And
'Cause
again,
even if it
it's
wasn't haunted, like, just the fact of what it is really cool. But
right.
it is haunted as well, like, it has proved to be, like, I mean, I believe that it's haunted. I felt its energy the day it got here and when I unboxed it. So even before I like opened the box, like when I picked the box up off my porch, I could just feel like the energy vibrating from it.
So you knew the instant you laid your hands on that box that it just had that
Yeah,
energy.
for sure.
And I'm gonna guess that you weren't totally surprised since you got that ding. You happened to look that day and you saw that object.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was super and it's funny because I had taken not a break, but, like, I hadn't been on there in a while, and then all of a sudden one night I was just like, I'm just gonna check and see what's new on there." And then that was, like, one of the first things that popped up, and I was just like, "Oh my god, like, that's such a cool thing." Like, because a lot of these are, like, dolls that, or, like, things that are just they're cool, but they're not like that,
Right.
that was just like, "Oh my god, I have to that is just so cool."
And it's I think the whole photograph concept as a potentially haunted object or just this intense object. I mean, you think about a photograph and it's capturing that moment in time. But then again, when you not to get too out there, but what are these moments in time, and is it almost serving as maybe some kind of conduit? I mean, there's a lot of different
Yeah.
ways you can think about it. All of them are can be pretty can be pretty mind blowing. But I mean, just as a piece itself, it's a gorgeous photograph, and I'm sure there's plenty of history behind it. I mean, did you learn much, about this person after getting the item or before getting the item, or
I did a little bit of research on him. So his name was Peter Bryce. I'll actually look it up right now so I can give you a
yeah,
little bit more information. You can look him up like on Google and
yeah,
stuff. Peter Bryce was a pioneering figure in the field of mental health, practicing in the post-Civil War era. He championed more humane therapeutic treatments for the mentally ill. He held important offices in both state and national organizations relating to health professions and was the first superintendent of the state mental hospital that now bears, they actually renamed the hospital after him.
oh wow,
And he's actually buried on the property there.
oh no kidding.
Yeah, and I believe his wife is too. I know
Uh,
her name is on the headstone there as well. I forget what his wife's name is. Let
would
me
it,
see.
wouldn't it be incredible to go there and not just to go there, obviously to experience that location and where this photograph came from, but also to see if you pick up a similar energy that you
Yeah,
get
I
off
thought
the
about
the
doing
picture.
that one day. Someday I would like to go out there and actually bring this portrait with me out there
Yeah.
and see, what would happen. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I'd watch the video. So, so
Thank
so
you.
so when we can travel with less restrictions, I say go for it.
Yeah, definitely. That is on my list of places that I want to go to. So,
So you made a comment earlier when you bring a new object in, it seems to stir the energy up.
yeah. It does. And especially this one. I mean, since I brought this in my home, I I have security cameras up all over my house, which I put up for two reasons. One is because I have a senior dog and I like to be able to keep an eye on her if
Yeah,
I'm not home. And the other thing is for the paranormal aspect.
yeah,
And I always have them set to infrared. So even if like it's during the day, it's still set to infrared to get into that spectrum.
yeah.
So I can still view it in that spectrum. And the things that I've caught since bringing this in my house are just, unbelievable. Especially like the one the other night after I had done the spirit box session, sitting at my dining room table, and then literally minutes after I filmed that I don't know what you want to. It literally looked like a ghost that just like flew from the ceiling down to the ground. Like it was really crazy, and it
Yeah,
was
that
it
was
flew
crazy
from right
because
above where I was just sitting. It was like so cool and just like still blows my mind, you know.
and
Um,
so, and do you feel that this activity that you've gotten since this object has been in your house? I mean, do you feel like it's the spirit that is potentially attached to this object, or do you feel like this
yeah,
object has such resonance that it's stirring everything else up, or both?
both. But I think that that one, I do believe it was from that portrait because actually I took I paused. I took the video and then I paused it in that whatever you want to call it's mid-flight, and um, you can actually see two faces in it, like a man and a woman's face in the. I don't know what word to use to call this the thing that flew. I mean, to me, it was more than just an orb. It literally
Yeah.
looked like a spirit that, flew. And I paused it and took, like a freeze frame of it. And there you can see a woman and a man's face in it. It's really, really interesting. And then also I have um, one of my followers on Instagram and YouTube as well, but on Instagram, his name is Russell. Him and his wife Marianne are both psychics as well, and they messaged me right after I posted that, and were like, "That's coming from that, that portrait. That's him. Like that's him and his wife there." So that was cool to have them confirm it as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's astounding. I mean, it just blows my mind that you are essentially surrounded by this energy at all times. And I know you mentioned that there are times where everything seems pretty dormant, and then there's times where, obviously, as as you are so eloquently describing, things are very active from a day to day basis or night to night. How do you manage that, though? Obviously, you've probably grown accustomed to it, but how do you ever fully grow accustomed to having just that level of energy in your home?
I honestly really enjoy it, for the most part. The only time I was upset was the one time. I don't know if you saw the video on my Instagram, but, I think I put it on my YouTube as well, but there is a video that I caught on one of my cameras where I was actually sitting on my bed and my 2 cats were on the bed with me and my dog was on her bed next to my bed. And all of a sudden, like, I had no idea what happened. My cat was sitting there and all laying there sleeping, and then all of a sudden he, like, hops up and hisses, runs away, and I was like, "What the heck just happened?" And I looked back on the camera footage, and you can actually see something reach up from the end of my bed and grab his paw. It was really crazy, and, like, that really upset me that they were messing with my animals, and I
Yeah.
actually had, like, a talk with the spirits in my house after that happened, and I was like, Listen, you cannot do that, like, you're free to be here, you're free to be who you are, but do not mess with my animals." And so, since that, I mean, then that was before the haunted portrait came into the house, and then when that came in, I have a video where my cat was laying on the couch right underneath where the portrait is, and it literally he looks up, and then 2 seconds later, the portrait comes crashing down, almost landed on him. And that stuff upsets me because I don't
Yeah.
want my animals to be upset or anything like that.
Right. Of course.
So
'Cause-
I had another talk with them after that, and things have been okay since then, so that's good.
and that's
But
one thing I've definitely, in terms of this, obviously you have the utmost respect for this energy, for these spirits, however you would want to describe it. And that's one thing, I mean, I do respect about you. I feel there are people that pursue pursue similar paths with a lot less class and respect for the potential entities that they're dealing with. And it's, I can't remember who I heard saying it, but you need to as you do, approach with gentleness and care, because these are potentially former lives, and
Yeah.
who knows the suffering that they've seen, and why would you want to even
I-
consider making things more stressful for them, right?
Yeah, I think I actually mentioned that in one of my videos that I did recently on YouTube. I was saying, I think it was my video that I had posted about like my tips and tricks for spirit box sessions, and I was
That's where I
mentioning like,
heard it.
yeah, and
And
I was mentioning, um, that it's important to be respectful and not be antagonizing these spirits and being disrespectful or whatever may have you, because it's just like if you were to be talking with a person, if you were treating somebody like that, would they respond well to you? No.
yeah, of course not.
So and that's how I look at it. Like, I think that you know the way I am in my life with everything, with people, with animals, with spirits, is like I come at everything with, I always try to come from a place of respect and understanding and compassion, and always try to give everyone, whether it's a person, an animal, a spirit, the benefit of the doubt, and give them their own chance, instead of like if somebody just, for example, like that haunted voodoo head that I have.
Hmm.
The previous owner and the owner before that, they told me like, oh my, like really tried to like, I don't want to say they were trying to freak me out about it, but like they couldn't handle it. And
Hmm.
but when something comes into my house that has like that kind of backstory behind it, I don't treat it as like, oh my God, I'm so scared of it. I try to give it its own, I want to get my own first impression of it.
Right.
I don't base my impressions of something off of what somebody else said, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I feel like that you can parallel with so many things in life, be it people, be it a book or a film, or a particular dog breed, right? I think that it's always a wise path to try to formulate your own your own understanding, your own opinion before you
right.
obviously some information can always be helpful. At least you know what you're what you might be
Yeah.
going through. But
Yeah.
and that leads me to my the next thing I wanted to ask. And I believe there was at least, I think it was last year, and it might have been one of the Dybbuk boxes that you picked up. Uh,
Mhm.
do you often, or maybe not often, but maybe often enough, have an object come into your home that either right away you need to get it out of the house, or after a period of time you just need to, it just the energy is bad and you need to get.
Yeah. So far, I've only had one of those, and it was a Dybbuk box, that supposedly, I'm trying to remember the story behind it, but I think it came from like this abandoned house where supposedly the guy that had lived there, I believe he had committed suicide, but prior to him committing suicide, had been doing like supposedly like devil worship and
Hmm.
things like that, and like really like dark magic and
Yeah.
dark stuff. And I wasn't sure about the story behind it and all that, so once again, I gave it its own chance when it got here. And I actually have a video somewhere on my Instagram. It's probably like way back, because this was probably about at least a year ago, I think it was. And when I first got it, I have an EVP of something saying my name out loud, and it was right by that box. And then I remember, I don't know if it was that night or a few nights after, but I had this very, very, very vivid dream that was, well, nightmare, really. It was the scariest dream I've ever had in my life, and it felt so real that it was
Hmm.
just bizarre. I remember, um, I don't remember the whole dream, but I just remember this one part where, like, in the dream, my, like, skin started to peel off of my face, and I was, like, peeling at the skin, and then all of a sudden, my ear literally came off, and, like, the when my ear came off, like, the inside of my ear, there was, like, this demon thing that like came out from inside of my head. And I, it felt so real. And then I remember in the dream as well, like speaking to my dad in the dream, like saying something like, I wonder if this is because of the haunted object that I have or something along
Yeah.
those lines. And and I woke up from that dream, like, when you're having a nightmare and you just snap awake.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
snapped awake and for a second, like I literally grabbed at my ears to make sure they were both like connected to my
Yeah.
head because that's how real it felt. And after that, I was like, I'm getting this out of my house. And, I got rid of it. So
Probably a good decision. Was this the object, the box that had all the black wax over it?
yes, and it had a
Okay.
cross on top of it, an
Yeah.
upside down cross, and it had black wax all over it. And there was also a picture included, like a printed photo, of the house that it supposedly came from.
Yeah. I
So
recall this. It was that I think that was what at the time had grabbed my initial attention. I had long been fascinated by the whole Dybbuk box mythos. I know there's conflicting stories as far
yeah,
as, was this the, sort of creation of a film director, or is this something actually historically
right.
relevant? I think
Plus,
in
there
some
are a
people,
lot of fakes out there. Like
yeah,
I've found other ones that, people literally put like a rocket. You can tell like there's just like a rock in there or something like that. Like there's so many fake ones. But whatever was attached to that, like,
mm,
nope, sorry, not gonna be in my house. Like,
yeah,
if I had a different place, like, cause my dream one day is to have my own paranormal museum.
yeah,
That's why I really started collecting these things,
yeah,
cause I don't really wanna have all these in my home, you know?
right.
Um,
Which I can
and
understand. Sometimes you
yeah,
probably would like, a fairly lower resting state for the energy that's all
right,
around you.
especially for, like, objects like that, to have their own, like, place that's not in my home, not near my animals, things like that, especially for objects of that nature.
Yeah,
Because if I had a museum or something, I would have kept it, you know, um, but to have it in my home, no, no.
no,
So, it had to go. If I had my own museum or something, I would have kept it and kept it there, but to have it in my home, that's a different story. So yeah, that was the only one that I was like, "Nope, gotta get rid of it." Um, but all the other ones I've, kept. I mean, I've sold a few of them, but not because I had to get them out of my house. I just sold them because I just didn't connect well with them. I
right.
mean, they still I still had experiences with them, but I just didn't have an attachment to them like I do a lot of my other ones, where they're special to me or, things like that.
Of course. I mean, that makes sense to me. I think too that shows your practical side. Right, you can't keep every single object you come across, right? You will,
Right.
you're gonna run out of
Yeah,
room
because I'll
eventually.
end up being like a hoarder with 1,000,000 haunted objects. That would be crazy.
Yeah, maybe when you have the museum doors open, then you can be a little, less selective maybe about what you hang on to, but I get the impression that, that your selectivity is not gonna change, when the day comes and you do have that museum, and I think that's what makes your collection, special, right? It makes your collection distinctive versus someone else's collection because a big part of that collection is the connection that you have with it, right?
Yeah,
And that's what makes it unique to
pretty
you,
cool.
a unique experience. That's
Yeah.
wild. I personally, I could not. I don't think I would handle well even having a single object in my house. So I all the power to you, and I look forward to the day when you do have your museum. I will definitely come
Thank
check
you.
that out. Absolutely. Now
Yeah,
let's
it's a dream of mine, so hopefully one day
yeah
I'll have
keep
that,
keep at it. Keep that dream alive. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you saw that saw that first video that had you go out and get that object to get you on this path. So I really hope that it does that it gets you there.
Yeah. There's actually a paranormal museum a couple towns over from me here in New Jersey called it's actually called the Paranormal Books and Curiosities, and it's owned by this really awesome woman. Her name is Kathy Kelly, and she has some really cool objects there as well. And that was another thing that inspired me to like start collecting, and then inspired me, to have that dream of having my own museum like that someday.
Let's talk a little bit about in the last little bit here about some of your adventures. You often go out alone, which I think is really brave. I don't know that I would. Yeah, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. I will openly admit that. So I don't know that you would catch me going out alone, but I have to ask, what inspires your solo missions? Because I've also seen you go out with your gang sometimes, but it seems like more often that you're getting out there alone. Do you find that you connect better with the experiences when you're solo, or is it just that you want to be able to go out and check something out when that notification goes off, rather than having to try to coordinate people's schedules? You just want to get up and go.
Kind of both.
Okay.
I mean, I love going with my friends, that's fun, and I do enjoy that. And actually, like when my friend Kris Star, I'll say her last name because there's two Chris. I'm Kris and she's Kris, so it can get a little confusing. But like, it's crazy when her and I go places together, especially just the two of us. Like, really crazy things happen every time her and I go, on these investigations together. Like, really interesting. I feel like our energy together, like really, really crazy stuff, it just brings out like really crazy things, and it's really interesting. But I also do love to go on these things on my own by myself, because I feel like when I'm by myself, I can just kind of do it whatever way feels right at that time for me.
And
Um,
I'd also imagine you can also get into a different sort of headspace when you're
yeah,
solo, right?
yeah, I can
Um,
concentrate a little better as well, because when you're with other people, you're talking with them or things like that, which is fine. But sometimes to do it by yourself, I feel like I can get better in tuned with what's around me
yeah.
than when I'm with other people. So I like doing both. I do love my solo adventures, and so many people comment on my videos like, "I would never go out there alone. You're crazy for doing that. Like, that's crazy. You're so brave for doing that." And you know, I think that's cool that they think that. It's just, I don't know. I'm really not afraid. The only time I've ever kind of been afraid, and it wasn't of the spirit, it was of that crazy person that trapped me on that haunted road.
Right.
And that was like, oh my goodness. Like, after that, I was just like, I need to start carrying some kind of protection with me.
Yeah.
So I started carrying a taser. I am looking into like concealed carry laws in my state, because you just never, that's, spirits don't scare me, but people, the living, are what freak me out, because
And that's
people
what
are
I was
crazy.
going to say. I think that element is probably what is most concerning, would be your safety from your fellow human beings, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yep.
I watched enough true crime to know that it's our fellow human beings that can really cause
Right.
this lasting, often fatal harm. So yeah, but just be safe, be safe.
Yeah, I
But
will.
also, I do remember you saying in one of your recent videos that when you do go out solo, you tend to not head out into the middle of nowhere, and you make sure that at least some attempt that people are in earshot and that you're not completely off the grid. Which yeah, I think if you're going to go solo, I think that's a smart way to do it.
Yeah, like for example, recently I went to these woods down by me, and it was at night, and something was trying to lure me into the forest. I don't know what it was, but this like weird noise kept happening out there, and I feel like it was trying to lure me in, and in further, because I was in a good amount, but I wasn't in like really, really deep. And I
Right.
was, I think I said in my video, if somebody else was here with me, I probably would go further in. But since I'm here by myself, probably not the greatest idea.
Right. That was
Um,
your alone in a haunted forest video. Am I right?
yes.
Yes.
Yep. At Witches Hollow Road here in New Jersey. Um, and then I went back, I believe it was the next day during the daytime in the rain. And then I went way further
Right.
into the forest there. But yeah, I mean, I'm careful about what I do, especially at night, because you really can't see what's around you. It's so dark out, and anybody could be hiding out there or things like that. So I try, I'm not stupid about it. I try to be careful, but at the same time, still have fun.
Well, yeah, and I get that. I get that. I got to say the abandoned campground was pretty damn cool. I assume
Yeah,
that's kind of by. Is that in your neck of the woods, or did you have to?
Yeah, that's about 20 minutes away from me. And yeah, that's a pretty cool location. I like it there. I had never been there at night before. I'd only been there during the day once before, and so I wanted to see what it was like at night. And that was pretty cool. I still have no idea what that was screaming at me out there. It was some kind of animal or something. I don't know what that was, but it was. And in the video, like, you could hear it, but it wasn't very loud, but in person, it was so much louder, and it
Yeah.
really was like, and it was so weird because I had literally just been talking about, like, cryptids and stuff, and as I'm speaking about that, then that happened, and it was just like, that was weird.
And it's funny too. Even if I have been into astronomy for years, and I used to go out to the dark sites solo to do some observing. And maybe 10 years ago, there was I mean, I think it was a fox doing some crazy mating call scream, and it sounded like a female being, woman being murdered. And I
Yeah.
and I knew 100% beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was an animal, but the sound still made my skin crawl, and I just
Oh,
couldn't get
yeah.
back down to that resting state. It just had just hit that primal part of my brain, and I had to call it a night. So even hearing things that you can very easily explain,
And
I
also
think it
because
triggers it.
sometimes I think, like, maybe the animals, even if they are if it is an animal screaming, maybe they're trying to warn you, like, not to go any further.
Right, you're
Because
in deep
animals are
enough.
very, very in tune with spirits. If you
Yeah.
notice in a lot of videos that people do outdoors on these paranormal things, you'll hear, like, when the spirit activity is about to get crazy, like the frogs will start going nuts, or, things like that. So I pay attention to everything. So even if people are like, oh, it's just an animal. No, like, I think that they're trying to tell you something,
Right. Right. Absolutely. What was the energy like there at the abandoned campground? Was it just a abandoned spot, or did you pick up some vibes there?
Towards the end, I started to pick up some vibes, especially after I heard that.
Mhm.
Then, like, I really started to feel it. And in the beginning, I was feeling it a little bit, but after it got really dark, that's when I started to feel something. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I definitely felt a presence there. Somebody
Mhm.
actually commented in my video too. I think they said they saw, actually, 2 people saw different things. One person saw, like, a figure over by the last building that I went in, like,
Mhm.
I was in right when I came out and heard that noise. They saw something there. And then another person had commented, and they had seen something, in the woods when I was walking back from there. So, I don't know, but it was definitely interesting. That place, I want to go back though and see how I feel again the next time.
Well, you think about it too. I mean, it was a summer camp, or was it like a sleepaway camp? You imagine
Yeah,
a
I
lot
think it
of
was a Boy Scout camp or a Girl Scout camp, one of those, I believe, or something like that.
right. So you figure you've got your younger kids out there doing their camp thing, but then you probably also have teenagers in that age group, part of that whatever the group was that had the camp out there. And as you well know, I mean, teens are known to sort of be, because of the liminal nature of being an adolescent, sort of these almost antenna for drawing in this energy, and I would think that would be a real candidate spot for having so much of that residual energy and have whatever other energies kind of drawn to it. That's why I was just kind of gravitated toward that video, and I'm definitely going to have to give it another watch when I can give it full attention, just to see what I might be able to pull out of it. And
Yeah, I
then,
would love your opinion on how you feel about that place because it's definitely an interesting place.
oh yeah, just visually, I mean, it's got that great sort of just abandoned,
Aesthetic.
desolate kind of, exactly, that aesthetic. That's the word that I was reaching for. And another thought occurred to me too. So you heard the animal make the noise, and then suddenly you're feeling this rise in energy. You're feeling almost more receptive toward it. And what if, here's a concept to consider, that sound triggered a very normal sort of uh, emergency almost response in chemically in your body. Could that perhaps be sort of the catalyst for your antenna going up, right, and you suddenly becoming more sensitive to the energies? I wonder if there are these sort of triggers that are very much like the animal warning you, or getting darker, that trigger something in the lower parts of our brains that sort of make us
Oh
more
yeah,
receptive. And
definitely.
maybe that's why, as far as animals, how they call out to each other with warning, it's maybe it's a similar sort of response in us as humans, because let's face it, we're all animals at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, that's actually interesting that you say that because now that I think about it, when I did hear that sound, you do get, because it's like kind of a trigger response, and then your senses really do heighten.
Hmm.
So, and especially if you already have like intuitive abilities or things like that, and then it gets heightened even more. So then you're super sensitive to whatever's around you. So it's actually really interesting that you brought that up. I like that
Something to
viewpoint of that.
consider, right?
Yeah. I never thought about that before, but that's actually really interesting.
So, Kris, we're getting ready to wrap up here. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you out there on the magic of the internet?
So my Instagram is at Paranormal Descendants. And then my YouTube is Paranormal Descendants. And then I'm also on TikTok as well, which is Paranormal Descendants 888.
Awesome.
And I think that's all of them.
And of course, I will drop all of that into the show notes. And Kris, if you happen to remember one that you left out that you want me to include, obviously I will share that as well. But
Oh,
it's
also my email, in case anybody wants to email me, is paranormaldescendants@gmail.com.
awesome. I think we got it. Well, Kris, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been fascinating talking to you. I really have so many other things I would love to chat with you about. So, of course, I'm going to extend a open invitation to have you back on the show sometime. And we
Oh,
obviously
I would
love
love
to
to.
chat
That would
again.
be awesome. This went by so fast. I was like, oh my goodness,
It
we're done
really
already.
did. It really did. And I got to say, for me, it's just so, I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and it's just so refreshing to talk about this stuff and hear other people's perspectives and other people's experiences. And I think for me too, as sort of on a parting note, and my listeners, are aware of this too. There was a phase in my life where I was very sensitive and very open to experiences, and then when real life hits you, and one thing or another, it kind of drags you down a little bit back closer to earth. it's almost like you kind of get closed off to all these other, higher, we'll say higher level energies around you. And then the moment you kind of dig back in and open that door again, it's almost astounding what you experience and what you feel. So this
It
just
is.
and then even talking about it, I feel also kind of serves as a catalyst as well. So thank you for taking me on your journey for a little bit, and I'm definitely going to obviously continue to follow what you're doing out there, and looking forward to seeing what other amazing objects you bring into your collection.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to add something to what you just said,
Of
that
course.
I believe that, um, when our vibration has been lowered, when we're distracted by what's going on in the media or what's going on in the world and these lower vibrational things, we are not as in tune as we could be. But when we do, when we follow our path that raises our vibration, what you can experience is really truly amazing, you
Yeah,
know.
it can very well, be life changing, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end the show on. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, make sure you go check out Kris, Paranormal Descendants, and make sure you give her subscriptions on her YouTube and all the likes and all the great comments that you have in you.
Thank
We'll
you
do,
so much.
of course, we'll do this again soon. As I was working on edits for this episode, the thought crossed my mind, and my wife would probably murder me for even thinking it, but what would it be like to pick up something that is reportedly haunted, to bring it into my home, to experience it firsthand? And I came around to the decision. It was not a deeply serious thought, but I decided that I don't think I could keep something with that kind of energy in my home. So I'll continue to experience the awe and wonder through those folks that are brave enough to collect these objects. That wraps up this week's episode of Don't Turn Around. Thank you for tuning in. To learn more about this podcast, visit www.philrossimedia.com/DTA. And we'll catch you next time.